Welcome to the place where we learn about improv. Cause public speaking can take you so far. Improvly speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking. Improvly speaking, say yes and flex your creative thinking.
Welcome, everyone, to the Improvly Speaking podcast. So excited that you've joined me today. This is my second solo episode that I'm doing, and it is called Get Through the Cringe, which I will talk about what that means in a little bit. If you're joining for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here checking out the podcast. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think, and I hope you'll listen to others that I release too. And if you're joining again, if you're returning, welcome back. So excited that you've joined me on this journey, this awesome podcast journey that I'm on, and I'm learning a lot from, and I'm hoping you're learning a lot as well. On this podcast, I like to talk about public speaking, improv, communication, performance, and creativity, and anything and everything in between that. I know that's quite a range of topics, but the cool thing that I'm finding out is that they all kind of mix together and intertwine and relate. And I'm starting to see all these worlds kind of collide and lessons learned from all these worlds. And I love it. I'm just having such a blast. I also talk a lot about finding your creative outlets or a creative outlet, a creative passion. And that I feel like can be easier said than done. Sometimes when you do something new for the first time, it can be really hard and challenging and not fun. And it makes you not want to do it again because you aren't good at it. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is getting through that cringe of not being good at something for a while, or it hurting, or it being hard. That's that cringy part that you just kind of have to get through when something is new. You've got to just get through the cringe and work through it and get to the other side where it does feel good and you actually enjoy it. So we'll be talking a lot about that today, and I have a few anecdotal theories and stories to go along with that, and I'm excited to share that with you. In my first episode, I talked a lot about my background and my story, my origin story, how I got started, why I'm doing this. So please go back and listen to that one too, just to get a sense of why I'm here talking about this. But I also mention in a lot of the podcasts with guests that, I never considered myself a quote unquote artist or performer until about 2 years ago. Oh, I'll even say maybe a year ago with doing improv. I've learned that getting on stage and doing this art form of improv is definitely a performance, even though it's not on the grandest and largest of stages. But it doesn't have to be on the biggest stage to call yourself an artist or a performer. It's taken me a while to wrap my head around that concept, but I never was an artist. When I was younger, I strictly did sports. I was an athlete through and through, and drawing, painting, singing, acting, performing, drama, anything, music, let me mention music, anything in the arts realm, I didn't even try after a while because I just figured I wouldn't be good at it. And I knew it wouldn't be my thing, and I didn't want to look silly and stupid. So I never gave it a chance. And now I feel like in my 30s, I'm kind of making up for lost time in this new space of I'm not going to be good at everything. Give it a try. Keep giving it a try. And also just enjoy it. Do it for the sake of enjoyment instead of having to be good at it. It's funny that I have to relearn this or even learn this for the first time as a 34-year-old. I feel like I wish I could have been taught this a little earlier in life. And certainly there were people who said it, but there's a lot of pressure on you when you are younger to do the things that you're good at. So then you skip out on doing things that are harder and you're not good at because you're not good at them. So all that to say, we're going to talk today about getting through the cringe of that hard feeling, that uncomfortableness that comes when you do something new, when you try something new. When I think about trying new things or getting back into something I haven't done in a while, I've started to notice that the number 3 is a common pattern in this. And listen, this is all anecdotal here. These are anecdotal stories of how this pattern kind of shows up when I am trying new things. I understand, here's your disclaimer, I understand there are learning theories and learning curves out there that explain how this works psychologically. I will have a guest on to talk about adult learning later on. And if you're listening and you know the scientific names for these words instead of get through the cringe, I would love to have you on and talk about it scientifically. Please come on the show. Let's chat. But the term get through the cringe really helps me to kind of have a mantra or like a saying and just a reminder that I need to push through the cringe, push past my comfort zone walls, get through this icky, uncomfortable feeling. And on the other side, it's going to be golden. It's going to feel good. Not that it's going to be perfect, but it will feel much better. I just have to get through this cringy part first. So I mentioned that the number 3 shows up a lot in patterns, and you'll notice that it can be 3 times, 3 days, 3 weeks, months, years. Maybe it's 3 to 5, but that's the range that I'm noticing. 3 times, 3 months, 3 years is what it's taken me to feel good about certain things. So, first example here is spinning, cycling, stationary cycling, whatever you want to call it. For those who don't know, I used to be certified in spinning. I took the class. This was around 2013, 2014. I was living in South Carolina at the time, in Columbia, drove the 2 hours to Charleston, took an all-day class on spinning to get certified. It was like 8 hours on the spin bike, and then you had to take a test online. And I did all of that because I wanted to be certified in spin, and then I never used it. I never ever actually taught it because I was really scared of the microphone and breathing heavy and looking silly up there. I mean, there was a lot of reasons, and also life got in the way too, but there were a lot of reasons for not doing it, and fear was a big reason. All to say, I really enjoy spinning, and I've enjoyed it for a while. But I hear from a lot of people that, oh, the spin bike seat hurts. Oh, I can't ride the spin bike. Like, how can you ride that? That seat hurts so bad. And yeah, it does. Even if you have one of those gel cushy seat covers on it, it still hurts. I get it. Like, you get off the bike and you're like, oh my God. And I can't imagine what guys are feeling too. So I know that seat hurts. But what I tell people is you've got to do it 3 times. You got to ride 3 times, not consecutively, like 3 days in a row, but like 3 times close together. Maybe it's once a week for 3 times, or you ride twice a week and then another week after, and you get your 3 times in. But after those 3 times, it doesn't hurt as much on the seat. I ride now and I don't even think about the seat hurting. 1, because I have it in a good position, and 2, I've been doing it twice a week for months now, and I've gotten used to it. So I like to tell people, it takes those 3 times. It's going to be painful for 3 times. You're going to have to get used to it. You're going to be sore the day after in your underparts area. It's going to hurt. There's no sugarcoating it. It's not going to feel great. And also, the workout's going to be really hard too. It's not going to be fun or a walk in the park. Do it for the 3 times and you'll feel better. So that's the get through the cringe of spinning, at least. That seat effing hurts. You sit down the next day and you're like, why am I sore in that region? Oh, spinning. Yeah. Okay. That's why. But do it 3 times close together, and you should get over that cringy part to where you ride and it's like, oh, this is fun. I enjoy this. I have my favorite Peloton instructors now. If you use the Peloton app or whatever, like I have my favorite songs that I ride to now, and you can start enjoying it after those 3 times. And listen, that's what worked for me. It might take you 5. It may never really go away, but you get used to it at least. So if you've been thinking about spinning or cycling, try it out and do it at least 3 times to get over that seat hurting issue. But really, that goes for all exercise, right? I mean, yoga is really hard when you first do it. And I get in and out of yoga where it's like, I'll do it religiously, 2 times a week for months, and then I drop off and then I have to get back into it. And I notice how sore I am the next day after doing yoga, after not having done it in a while. I'm like, oh, okay. So I just got to work myself back into it. But it usually is about 3 classes, 3 workouts. I am an exercise person, I'm an athlete, so I do think in terms of sports, but it's always those 3 times to kind of get back into things. And then, or to start things with working out, and then it usually feels better. If you are new to working out, it can definitely take longer than 3 times to work out to feel better, but I'm talking more like comfort-wise too. Like maybe it takes 3 weeks of going to the gym to feel comfortable and not feel like, oh, I'm sticking out. People can tell I don't know what to do. It'll take a little bit, but I'm curious to hear what your patterns are. If 3 is a common number, or if you notice this in your workout routines. I've also noticed the number 3 in podcasting. So I started podcasting about a year and a half ago with my friend and colleague, Gabe Zickerman. We started the AHA Method podcast, Public Speaking in a Time of Distraction. And that podcast is still going on, and you can go and listen to episodes. They're great. But listen, I'll be totally honest and transparent with you. The first 3 episodes that we did, and it was just us 2, we didn't have guests on for a little bit. The first 3 episodes we did together did not feel great to me. They were fine to Gabe. He had done podcasting before. He had a few before this. He was fine with it. And they flowed well. If you go back and listen to the first 3, they're fine. Like, we have good banter, we have good rapport, we have a good conversation. It's totally fine. But I am so in my head for the first 3. I remember listening to them after and just cringing with, oh my God, I hate my voice. Oh, why did I say that? Oh, that was so offensive. I wanted to cut everything I said. Luckily, I didn't do the edits for the first 3 or 4 because I would have edited everything out. I mean, there would have been 100 edits on those episodes because I would have gotten so in my head thinking, oh no, someone's not going to like that. Oh, that's offensive to someone. Oh God, I sounded stupid there. I was very in my head, and I can remember after the 3rd one, after we clicked stop recording for the 3rd one, I remember texting my friend Susan after, and I said, this one felt better. Not great, this one felt better. And by the fourth one, I remember feeling like, oh yeah, this is good. Like, I'm having fun now. I'm enjoying this. I'm in it now. But it took three. It took three to really feel okay about it. After the first one, I sent it to my parents and my family. And my mom said, well, it was good, but you said a lot of yeahs. There's a lot of yeah. And I was like, oh, I didn't even notice that. Add that to the list now. I say a lot of yeahs. Oh, God. It just took a lot of mental courage and strength to do it. I just had to get through that cringiness of those first few podcast episodes. And then after that, I really did find a love for podcasting. I invited a bunch of guests. I had a really good time with it, and I started enjoying it so much that I wanted to start this one on my own. And now that I'm here doing a solo episode, this is my second solo episode, as I mentioned, I'm in that cringy part again. I'm not going to lie. I love the guest episodes. I love interviewing people. I love having conversations and recording them. All that, I have gotten through the cringiness of guest interviews. I'm good with that now. The solo episodes, that's another story. So I'm on number 2 of the solo episodes. I've got to do one more, at least one more. Maybe it'll take 5 solo episodes to feel more comfortable with it, but I'll get there. So I keep telling myself, just sit down, record, say what you want to say, mess up, and just get over it. You've got to release this. You've got to get through this. This is your cringy zone. This is your cringy part. It will not always feel like this. And I hope I'm right. I think I'm right. I know I'm right. I'll let you know. I'll check in after. So my 4th solo episode I do, I'll check in and I'll let you know, hey, this doesn't feel as cringy anymore. And I'll give you updates as we go along. But it's all because it just doesn't feel comfortable and therefore it doesn't feel fun. I have a feeling the 4th, 5th, and 6th solo episode and on will feel like a blast and time will fly by and it won't feel as cringy. So stay tuned for that. Also, when I think about my public speaking journey and when I started Toastmasters, the first 3 speeches were really scary. I joined my Toastmasters club at work. So it was a corporate club. We met at lunch every Thursday at a different location from 12 to 1. And I can remember when I had my speeches, I can say this now because I work for a different company, but when I had my speeches scheduled, I couldn't get any work done before then. And so the meetings were at 12. There was no work getting done before 12 because I was so scared and nervous about my speeches. It's all I could think about. I'll say, I probably should have practiced a little bit better for those speeches too. So that's probably where some of the nerves were coming from. I wasn't very prepared. I didn't really practice that much beforehand. So that's probably a little bit of the nerves, but also just I was nervous. I wasn't good at this. And they were hard. They were hard to get through. And after those first 3, though, I did feel better about them. It's funny. I wanted, in the first 3 speeches, I wanted someone to say, God, you're terrible at this. Like, oh, you are so bad at speaking. Because I thought that would motivate me. In my sports background, I feel like I had some coaches that would talk like that and say, you're not good at this. You need to work harder to get better. And that did motivate me. Oh, you're not playing as much because you're not as good. So if you work harder, then you'll get more playing time. So I wanted someone to talk to me like that for speaking, like, well, if you just work harder at it, you'll be better. But no one ever said that. No one ever said, you suck. That's why you don't speak well. They said, hey, this is hard. What you're doing is hard. Keep going. Basically, get through this cringy part and then you'll start to enjoy it, which is exactly what happened. Now, I will say it probably took around the first 3 were really hard, and then I found a little groove. I did my 10 speeches in a year. It took me a year to do 10 speeches, and I felt much better after those 10 speeches. But really, if I'm being honest here, it took me about 3 years to really feel comfortable with speaking. And I'm talking about like letting go of my notes, not bringing notes up to the stage, not nervous that I was like going to forget something and my mind would go blank, really feeling more comfortable. It took about 3 years. Now that's to say, within after that first year, so year 1 to year 3, we're good. Like I was in a good groove. I was still learning. I was getting better. I took on some leadership roles. But I can recognize the pattern of 3 in that the first 3 speeches were hard, and then the first 3 years really were hard, and I had to push through a lot of things to feel better at doing it. So it took me about 3 years to get into my groove and actually say, I enjoy doing this. In fact, I love doing this, which I had never said about public speaking before. So, there's that number 3 again for you. And when I think about 3 years, I think about when I was coaching volleyball. I used to coach youth club volleyball. So I coached 13s, 14s, 16s, 17s, and 14s again. I coached for about 4 years. And I'm not going to lie. And I can admit this now that I'm away from it and have been away from it for a while. The first 3 years were tough with coaching. I want to apologize to many and all of the girls that I coached within those 3 years because those were learning years for me. I was really taking what I had been taught as an athlete, and I hadn't really developed my coaching style yet. And I can see, I was trying to follow, this is how I learned, and I turned out okay, so I'm going to teach you how I learned. And now I think I would have a better style with it because I would have my own. But the first 3 years were tough. The first year I coached 13s, and at midpoint of the season, half of the girls threatened to quit, so we had to have a heart-to-heart. And we ended up finishing out the season, but there were a lot of complaints, and it was a little hard, but there were a lot of good relationships formed, and I still follow or am friends with some of the girls on social media, and they are now 21 years old or 22, and that is crazy because I knew them as little baby 13-year-olds, and it's been really cool to see them grow up and become strong young ladies, and I'm happy for them. I know that they would say I was not their best coach too, and that's okay because I didn't do it to be their best coach, but I do have some regrets in how I handled things. And then the second year I coached 16s, and that season that ended up ending midway through because we just didn't have enough players. One girl wasn't able to play for the season, and then another girl moved, so we didn't have enough players to field the team after a while. So that one was a bit tough and not all of my fault, but I didn't have good seasons. And then I ended up switching clubs for my third year, and I was an assistant coach, and I enjoyed that and got to kind of see, like, okay, this is how this club runs things. I like this. Here's what I would change. And then I think that's where I really learned, okay, this is my style of coaching. So when I had my fourth year of coaching, it felt really good. Like I had some lesson plans or practice plans already ready. I had, my style, I had my rules. I kind of knew how to handle things at that point. And I have to say that fourth year, I coached 14s at SC Midlands, and they are now freshmen in college. And, I wasn't perfect in that season, but I can honestly say that season felt right. That season felt good. Sure, there were mistakes made. There were things that I want to change, but overall, I felt really good about that season. And all of the girls that tried out for their JV team made it that next year. And it just felt good to kind of have that foundation, give them that foundation for them to become better volleyball players. So that was really special to me. And, I even saw one of the girls last holiday season. We were in town in South Carolina and we went to the local YMCA and I saw one of the girls and I was like, oh my God, she looks so familiar. And then I remembered and she recognized me too. And we hugged and I was blown away at just how strong and healthy she looked and excited that she liked working out. She said she played volleyball for a little bit, ran cross country too, really enjoys working out and being physically active. And I think that is so important. That was a really cool moment too. I don't keep up with many of them or any of them now, but they will always have a special place in my heart because that was a really special season for me, more than they probably know. They probably see me as being very mean, and usually when you have a coach, you don't see them as a person. I know I didn't see my coaches as people having like lives outside of volleyball, but that was a really special year, and it took, just to go back to what I was actually talking about, it took getting through those cringy few years to get to that place where I can have that special season. Unfortunately, I moved right after that. My husband got a job out here in Los Angeles and I moved and I haven't been able to get back into coaching again. So I've been out of the coaching game for now 4 years and I still think about getting into it. It's just takes a lot of time and things are a little different now, but I will get back into it and hopefully find that special season again. It'll probably take 3 seasons to feel more comfortable again. So I know that going into it, and that's okay too. And finally, I want to share with you my improv journey because this is, after all, Improvly Speaking, where I talk all about improvisation. And I talked a lot about my improv journey in the first episode, but just thinking about that number 3 and that pattern of 3 things, the first, honestly, all of 101, Improv 101 at West Side Comedy was so hard for me. I was not good at it. Every scene felt so hard to be in. And I can remember walking out, and my husband and I would take the metro, and we would walk to the metro and just go, God, that sucked. Like, that was awful. That didn't feel good. Like, why are we so bad at this? Oh, I shouldn't keep going. And then after a few classes, you kind of get over that and you're like, okay, it's fine. I'm not going to be good at this. Let me just have fun with it. But, that class show was fine. It was okay. And really, the first 3 to 5 class shows weren't great. Like, they didn't feel great. They felt very uncomfortable. I was very in my head about it. I walked away thinking, okay, well, that wasn't good, but the next one will be better. And usually it is. And, for our improv journey, most of it was online due to COVID. We took classes during COVID. And then we had to kind of go back and do all the classes in person. And we had to start over again doing shows in person. So the first 3 shows in person didn't feel great either. It's like, oh wow, I'm on stage and now people can see me. I'm not in my Zoom box anymore. And, to be honest, the first 3 shows we did, there was a very limited audience, which is good. It was mostly other improvisers in the other shows before or after us. But we kind of just had to get those under our belts, like just get through the cringiness of those first few shows in person in order to feel better about it now. Not going to lie, we're still in our heads. I'm still in my head, but I don't feel like it's as big of a deal if I mess up. I can laugh it off later. I can learn from it later. It doesn't feel as cringy and scary and detrimental and like, oh, I made this mistake. I ruined everything. It doesn't feel that dramatic anymore. And I think that is a sign that I am growing and getting better and I'm getting more comfortable at this craft. I still have a long way to go with improv, but I do feel like I've gotten through the cringiness of it. But now I just need to learn a few things on how to sustain the scene and play the game a little bit better. I mean, there's a lot to learn, and I want to keep going and learn it all and do it all because it's just so much fun. So I'm so glad that I pushed through that cringe and that uncomfortableness of I'm not good at this at all. 100% not good at this. But I kept going, and now I'm on the other side of that cringiness, looking back and saying, yeah, I'm on the other side and it feels good. Let's keep going. We've got work to do. So I know that was a lot of examples of the number 3 and how it's shown up in my journey and my growth and different things when I was trying new things or kind of starting new things again. So I want to ask you, do you notice this number 3 in your journey of trying new things? Maybe it's a number 5, maybe it's something else. Maybe it takes longer, shorter. How do you handle trying new things? Do you expect yourself to be good at them? Do you expect yourself to pick it up right away? Do you instantly give it up and you're like, oh, that hurt too bad. I'm never doing that again? To be honest, I've skied once. I've gone skiing once and I cried from it because my leg shook, my knee shook, and it brought back some feelings. It triggered some feelings of my knee surgeries and knee injuries, and I instantly started crying and couldn't control it. So part of me wants to say, I will never ski again, but I should give it another go. I should, and I will. I will eventually try it out or maybe try snowboarding or even just snow tubing, I think is a great alternative. So I can find alternatives to this. But, if you had kind of a moment there, like my skiing episode where you cried or it didn't go well and it was cringy and it was hard and it sucked, how'd you handle that? Did you never go back like me in skiing? Or did you keep going and pushing through that cringy part to get to the other side where it at least felt good? So think about it for a little bit and really reflect on how you handle new things, because that will come up as you are exploring other creative outlets and endeavors, hobbies, what have you. I mean, all these feelings come up. And, as you get older, most likely you're not going to be good at something when you first start. There's that rule of you have to do something for 10,000 hours to be an expert at it, or whatever that saying is. And certainly, doing something for the first hour to 2 hours of it is going to be rough and hard and uncomfortable. So how do you handle that? Do you give up or do you keep going? And what does it feel like when you're in your 300th hour or your 3000th hour? How can you notice the difference from when you started and you were in that first to third hour of doing it. I hope this helped you a little bit today. And thank you for listening and letting me share my stories with you of just the number 3 and how it's kind of shown up in different areas of my life and in my journeys through pushing through the cringiness of things. If any of this resonated with you and, you're like, oh yeah, I have this example of how it was super cringy at first, but now I love it. I'm doing it full time, or I'm just doing it as a hobby and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Whatever it is, please reach out and share with me. You can email me at Dayna, Dayna, at improvlyspeaking.com. Let me know what your number is, and let me know how you got past this cringy part. If you have any sage words of advice, love to hear it. And maybe you're still in that cringy part, whatever it is, job, a hobby, something new that you're doing. Let me know. I'd love to be in your corner, cheering you on, supporting you, and we can cheer each other on together. I want to remind you that I am on social media at Improvly Speaking on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I post a lot about the podcast episodes and other improv, public speaking related things. And you can also find out more about me and my services at improvlyspeaking.com. I had a blast today. That's episode number 2 down. It felt a little bit better. It still felt hard, but it didn't feel as hard as the first one. So 2 down, got to do another one to make it 3. And then I think that cringiness feeling will be gone. So thanks for being part of the cringe, and thanks for letting me get through this cringiness part. I appreciate you listening and supporting Improvly Speaking. Please reach out. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks, everyone.